So here we are looking at the, get my pen out here, we are looking at the carbon cycle, okay, showing how carbon cycles through a system. Now you can see that it is somewhat complex. You have different states where carbon is stored within animals, it is stored within plants, and plants get their carbon from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and they trap it during photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can diffuse into water, and carbon dioxide and water can diffuse into the atmosphere. We can also get carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere by combustion of fossil fuels, which we do with transportation and energy production. We also can get carbon dioxide by sediments, by volcanic eruptions, and the carbon stored within sediments can come from dead plants and dead animals, and you get a transfer of carbon when consumption happens, where animals consume plants and then other animals consume other animals, like our food chain. Here's another diagram looking at a carbon cycle and how carbon moves through an ecosystem. You can have volcanic eruptions here, carbon stored within sediment, carbon transferred from the atmosphere into plants, into the food chain through photosynthesis, and then as those organisms die, it transfers back into the sediment. Just showing some different examples of how carbon can move from one system to another. Here's a simplified diagram of this. So it says here, I'm going to start here, carbon is stored in land and living things, rocks and soils and fossil fuels. Then carbon is stored in ocean, living things, water and sediment. Carbon is stored in the atmosphere, and you can see how it transfers from one to another. And different actions that could cause it to transfer could be burning those fossil fuels, or living things being consumed, or living things dying and decomposing into the sediment. Yep. The major way that carbon is pulled out of the atmosphere is by photosynthesis, by my plants. And as my plants do photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide that was in the atmosphere is pulled in by the plants and stored as their major source of organic material. That carbohydrates transferred from carbon dioxide into carbohydrates here, and the major wood in biomass of plants comes from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which I think is just so amazing that if a tree, as thick as it can be, all of that hard mass and biomass comes from atmospheric carbon dioxide gas. This is a really cool graph, and what this graph is showing, here we have our independent variable, which is time, going from 1850 to 1990, and our dependent is the change of carbon in different systems. So in black we have emissions of fossil fuels, so carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels. You can see here it's increased. Net release of land use, alright, pretty much stayed the same. Unidentified sink, and a sink is anything that pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It's actually decreased. So carbon dioxide, their sinks, and the things that pull them out of the atmosphere is decreased. So therefore more carbon dioxide is still in the atmosphere and not being pulled out of the atmosphere. Plants are a sink of carbon dioxide because they pull atmospheric carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere during photosynthesis. Ocean uptake, alright? You can have many phytoplankton in the water that do photosynthesis, that pull carbon dioxide out. Alright? 33%, somewhere around 30% of our atmosphere, our oxygen in our atmosphere comes from phytoplankton in the ocean. And then atmospheric accumulation. Now, changes in the carbon biogeochemical cycle is mainly from burning of fossil fuels has greatly increased the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere over the last 150 years. And another problem is massive deforestation. If plants are my sink, all right, so here I got my plants. If plants are my sink, like my red plant, of pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and we are chopping down, here's my little guy with his axe, chopping down the trees, carbon dioxide is not being pulled out of the atmosphere, therefore just accumulating into the atmosphere. And this has been causing global temperature increases because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, meaning that it stores heat energy and retains heat energy that's coming in from the sun.